Jeremy Brook, aka Spine Checker. How you doing?
Super great.
Welcome.
How are you?
Yeah, really good. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, Thank you. Thank you.
This is our second meeting. The first time we met approximately, I guess, 14, 15 months ago at Deuce Gym.
Correct.
We were doing some work there and you popped in and we got chatting for quite a while. And then we've been following along on Instagram, which seems to be...
The power of Instagram, it's...
remarkable.
Yeah, just getting dips into your practice, I suppose, in your profession. And both James and I, when we knew we were coming back out, kind of agreed that we would love to come and spend time with you and have an open conversation.
Thank you.
About
Honored.
the work that you're doing and get to know a bit more, really.
Yeah, because you would look at what you do and you'd say, Jeremy's a chiropractor.
Yeah, I guess from the outside you would say that.
But there's more to it.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, because, I mean, you know, my experience in the UK with chiropractors, you kind of walk in and we were just saying about your space that it's much more than just walk in, have the physical experience of being realigned or adjusted and then walk out. And in the UK, that's certainly my experience. And so, of course, from following along on Instagram, we both recognize that that's not the experience that you get when you walk into your space.
Correct. We try to offer a multi-dimensional experience, a physical experience, a metaphysical experience, an emotional experience, a tactile experience. So we try to hit all of the senses, including the senses we haven't really discovered yet. And
we're in your office and we're surrounded by incredible artwork from the likes of Alex Gray and, I mean, God, I'm only really paying attention to that center illustration properly for the first time now, but these incredible yogic pictures of a teacher who you assisted, you said.
Chuck Miller, yeah. So those are photographs from James Winner, or James Vinner, W-V-I-N-N-E-R. Let's pronounce it correctly. And he just captured some magic with Chuck Miller, Ashtanga master.
And so So you were saying this was 25 years ago that you've been practicing yoga? 25,
yeah, about 25 years I've been doing yoga.
And so how then, I guess what I'm trying to get to is the practice that you practice, the practice that you practice today, how has that come about? How has the fact that we walk into your room and we're surrounded by Alex Gray paintings?
Yeah, destiny.
We're talking about chakras.
Destiny.
Yeah, right. Okay, but how does that all kind of come together for you?
Where did it start?
Yeah, where does that?
I mean, I guess it's the whole journey. I became fascinated with chiropractic as an 8-year-old. We would go to the chiropractor with the whole family. The chiropractor we had was like a samurai. The way that he moved around the table and adjusted us like a martial artist. Like he'd like ki when he would adjust. And from the age of 8, I wanted to become a chiropractor. So I was already grooving in that direction. And while at UC Irvine in college playing rugby, I got injured, suffered a massive trauma to my nose, my neck, shoulder. It was a bomb. And ended up discovering yoga, but like the slow version of yoga, hatha yoga, with like a person in the corner playing like a bansuri flute and a cobra coming out of a, basket. It was like that type of slow. And I just fell in love with this breath and movement approach, along with some of these incredible shapes, which gave me this tremendous energetic feeling, in addition to helping to heal my body. 2 years later or so, I went to chiropractic college, and then diving deep into the philosophy of chiropractic. And a lot of people think of chiropractic as just a musculoskeletal discipline. It's way beyond that people have no idea really what chiropractic is about. They know about like just the surface level, and we can go about 30,000 feet deep. I could convert that into the metric system for you if you wanted, for those people who need it. But from there, kind of mixing this chiropractic and yogic flavor, I started learning about other philosophies, different energy systems from just beyond the Western energy system, that maybe you'll experience in CrossFit, from the phosphogenic and the glycolytic and the oxidative energy systems into the chakras systems, and learning about the different centers within the body. So all along, I've just been picking up pieces from the yogic universe, from, let's say, the movement universe, from the chiropractic universe, and then figuring out what makes a person healthy and how they deviate from this overall state of health. And for me, it's just a matter of putting together a unified, organized system that's basic, that's easy, that's attainable, that's user-friendly for people to tap into, because otherwise it becomes so complex and overwhelming.
When you've studied all the different techniques from CrossFit, or schools, I guess, from CrossFit to yoga, and you overlay them, are there similarities that you've seen anyway, or have you connected these dots?
Similarities. Yeah, well, it kind of comes down to the user, the player, the person in the game. And I feel like there's a different person involved with regards to like their energy, their attitude, their intensity. And, each movement can be like medicine, and it could also be poison, depending upon how the user, the person, the human utilizes it. CrossFit, gorgeous collection of different disciplines and movements. You're moving heavy loads with different speeds and all of that kind of incredible stuff. But if a person doesn't have the architecture or is just disorganized from the inside out, can't handle those loads. Same thing goes with a yogi. Yogi is a disaster, but is flying through a vinyasa practice like a rhinoceros in a rose garden. So for me, I can see where different types of people are going to get injured, or even better, different types of people who will be successful in those type of activities.
And then is it a case of directing them? So when a client comes to see you, that you can
say, hey, you might want to try this, or hey, you might want to try that. Yeah.
Yeah, because the idea is longevity as opposed to...
Yes.
My experience, well, not personal experience, but my observation of chiropractors in the UK is very much, we crunch you back in, you'll be back in 4 weeks. It's like book back in. And I've tended to see osteopaths and cranial osteopaths and that kind of thing, who have a
different philosophy.
Not an opposing one. I still get crunched because people like to, we're humans. It's like you like the sensation of being crunched rather than a head holding cranial treatment where you've no idea, have I just, has anything actually happened? But it has had a profound effect.
Indeed.
How does it differ, I think, for these people to experience that, and you can usher them on a new path? That was my experience of osteopathy. Questions would be asked of me why I was running. I never ran again after that because I couldn't answer it, and then I found myself in CrossFit and then yoga, and it has a profound effect. Certainly did on me, on changing someone's trajectory. But I went in thinking I was fine, and then all of a sudden 5 years later, well, we've created a magazine, and that's kind of why we're here today.
What was it when someone? What happened? Did someone suggest that you should go and get a treatment?
Yeah, my partner, her mum.
Just go through this doorway.
Yeah,
it's really nice on the other side.
And I was like, I'm totally fine. I went to see the osteopath I see now, Astra Grayland, and she was like, okay, so tell me. And I was like, do you know what? I'm absolutely fine. And I'd been running a business for 6-7 years before, flat out, just bull in a rose garden.
Ahead.
Yeah. And she was like, hop on the table. I hopped on the table, and I was like, this is all, quackery kind of thing. She was like, okay, so your adrenals are like this, your liver's like this. And I was like, all you've done is held my feet, but I will go. You just tell me what to do. Sugar, caffeine, cut out. And then I can't even describe the change other than I know the difference now. But from something so innocuous, or seemingly innocuous, that we're all we go through life going, I'm fine. And you can have that. Like, have you had that experience of people coming to see you? And I've just been rambling on. Have you had that experience of people coming to see you? They come in through one door and they leave through room 4.
Right.
And they're totally different. Well, they're probably the person they are. They come in as one person and they leave as their self.
Most people are unaware that there's this thing called spinal nerve pressure, where you can have a bone out of place or a bone out of space. If we think of the 26 bones in the spine like floating in a web of tissue, that a bone can be out of place, that can put pressure on the nerve, that can cause interference within their communication, their energy system, that can create either localized tension or global tension, like a full physiological response. People are oblivious to that sensation, so that when you go to an osteopath or a chiropractor or an acupuncturist, somebody who is trained to listen to these and feel for these subtle shifts within the body. And in doing so, when they sense it and then they make a correction and there's an increased flow, which then is more like bringing you to a normal state. And now people are like lit up, but that's the normal state. So most people are running around in a suboptimal state. So when somebody comes into the office, they think they're doing amazing, and they probably are doing amazing at living in a suboptimal state, below their 100% optimal potential, what their true innate capacity is, and they're rocking it here, and they're grinding it here. And then when we come in and we find just like a very simple way of, you have your top bone misaligned, that's putting some pressure on your nervous system, causing your body to move into a fight or flight physiological state that, if you don't get that corrected, develops into a chronic contracted state. And now you're living in a chronic contracted, adaptive, reactive physiological state that you think is normal. So we go in, we clear that out, shift the flow in the body, change the energy, change the vibration, change the neurological state from a fight or flight into a parasympathetic, relaxed, chill, growth and digest, rest and recover state. And then they come out of the office going, holy smokes, like, I believe in this osteopathy or this chiropractic or this acupuncture thing. And really, it's a shame that, it has to come to this, that like it's not like a commonplace for everybody that's born, every baby that's born, immediately after the birth process, immediately after like the baby has finished with his or her first meal, they go, okay, bring in the chiro or the osteopath to give the baby like the first check, because that road into
it's a rough one.
There's a quote that both James and I love, by a chap called Doc Paskovitz. I don't know if you know the Paskovitz family. Very famous surfing family.
Yes, I do.
There's a Netflix documentary,
yes, I've
Surf
seen
Wise,
it with like 10 kids or so.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just go and surf every day. That was the mantra.
Right.
Doc has a quote that says, to paraphrase, "Health is not the mere absence of illness; it's a superior state of being," which I think is fantastic.
Love it.
To go to your point and to reference back to James's experience, quite often you need to have a sharp contrast to understand something. So I feel amazing. I go and, a trauma happens to my body. I realize I don't feel amazing anymore. People don't, I would imagine that people don't realize that they don't feel good. So they don't have the contrast to be able to say, okay, well, I need to actually, let's say health is 0 and superior health is +10 and bad health is -10, and they don't realize they're at -5.
Right.
So how can one, with the exception of coming in and saying, give me a checkup or let's do a treatment, how does one begin to understand and realize that they need to go through a process to heal their body so they can get as close to +10 as possible?
Self-reflection. and there has to be like a certain criteria of, there's like non-measurable components. You do the blood work and the blood work checks out okay. Most people are kind of like okay at just being one step above, the zero, or, they're close to,
they don't have a disease and they think they're okay.
It comes down to more of a personal philosophy. It comes down to like, what's your paradigm? Do you live in more of a reactive paradigm or an proactive paradigm? Here in the West, and probably in the UK for the most part, it's a highly reactive paradigm. If I'm not sick, I must be good. If I'm not expressing symptoms, I must be good. But the body's so incredible at adapting to all of these different events and environmental conditions that are being thrown upon it. So it's going to adapt. It may not express symptomatology until way down the road. So for us, and for me, it turns into like, how does a person know? Well, they listen to podcasts and they get turned on to this idea of, hey, wait a minute, I could be better. What are different ways that I could get checked to see if I can improve my physiology? And for me, like the basic factors are like, are you tired? If you're kind of like tired and you find yourself more dropping into more of like a negative thought process, something needs to be adjusted and something needs to be shifted. If you're finding that you're allergic to this and you're kind of getting all of these colds every once in a while, for me, it means that your body is under some type of stress. Mm-hmm. So how do you go about, assessing that? Either through self-reflection, whether it's a meditation practice, whether it's a yoga practice. It's like a daily practice where you sit down with yourself, you go through all of like the thoughts in your head and you go, man, where am I? Am I kind of like dipping more towards the negative end of the spectrum, or am I moving towards the elevated end of the spectrum? But a lot of this comes down to like this new way of thinking. It's like it has to be the blueprint, it has to be the starting point for your life, and it's the self-reflection of, am I doing everything to experience a higher, super conscious, super aware, super awake state of being? And if you have no interest in being aware and awake, then hopefully you're listening to this type of podcast that can open you up and you go, you know what, let me explore, whether it's yoga or chiropractic, or why would I even go to a chiropractor? I don't have neck pain. But then you learn about chiropractic is not necessarily about neck pain. Chiropractic is about potential. It's always been about potential. It's about achieving your 100% innate potential. And what is the number one obstacle from, you connecting with your head and your heart? In chiropractic, we talk about the nervous system. The nervous system is the integrating master of all of the systems in the body. You got some bones out of place, putting pressure on the nerve, you're going to have some interference with your energy system, your communication system, and then ultimately you're just going to be functioning at a less than optimal state. And then people just think that that's normal. So they just don't know that they're living at a less than optimal state. I can go. Yeah, hopefully that answered the...
Yeah, and if you want to go on, then please, there's no pressure to stop.
That's a good stopping point.
There seems to be a cultural level of disconnection with when we were in room 1 or 2, and it was how the body works, and its muscles aren't reductionist, and it's not just the bicep, it's all of these... However many muscles. How many muscles did you say?
650 to 850 different muscles, depending on the source. There's like a 200 muscle difference in the body. Yeah, it's kind of wild.
But it's really one muscle.
I look at it as one muscle.
Yeah, and it's all interconnected with everything else. But we like to, shoulder pain must be sore shoulder, but it actually might be as a result of, an ankle
right
on your opposing side, because for whatever reason.
Yeah, and again, it comes down to obvious reasons. Like, why are we experiencing the dysfunction? And that's where, again, like, if we can talk, one aspect of our conversation is talking about the normal baseline for a Homo sapien is exceptional health, who has a very long lifespan, like 100-year lifespan, and then we can drop down into this dysfunctional state. And why are we dysfunctional? And here in the West, again, we're living on this weird headspace where instead of like approaching things, how are we breathing? How are we interacting with the body? What is our relationship with shapes and positions? You know, what's our sleeping position? Like, are we moving through full ranges of motion throughout the day? The answer is no. And then, like, how about the food that we eat? Does it contain life force? And this ultimately just comes back, do we have a relationship to life force? And maybe that could even be the theme is, do you have a relationship to life force? It's invisible to the eye, but it's the most essential thing. And
it goes through everything. Food, nature, environment, the whole thing. When we walked in, one of the things you said was, we don't have chairs anymore. And how did you explain it? It was about creating shapes for people to experience the environment.
We want at least the opportunity to discuss shapes. Personally, I'd like to have like small little squatting stools, but for some people, you know, they can't even squat. In fact, they've named even the squatting position, they got the American squat, which is
that chair.
You know, it's like
probably the same as the English squat.
It may be the same as the English squat too. But it's an opportunity for people to have a new reference point. Instead of that 90-degree shape, we don't have a back on the chairs, so you're forced to sit on some type of round object, stool or ball chair, and that causes you to actually use something called your back muscles. And even though the sitting shape, it's not on the ball chair, it's not allowing you to express a full range of motion, at least it's causing you to not just be a slacker and fall into this pre-imposed shape. Like, no one sits into a chair nice. Everyone ends up just slumping, no matter how great your initial intention is.
I always find sitting in a chair, even if you sit in it the way the chair was designed, way more uncomfortable than sitting like this.
I'm a squirmer. Yeah, I can't do it.
It's the strangest thing. We were talking in the car about the chair. For me, is like the West. It's like we've designed the chair, and it's fucked so much up. Really, you know.
Agreed.
The brain switches off. You sit down, the brain switches off. But that's how we teach people,
right,
to sit down in the office. And,
yeah,
you know.
I have weird thoughts. Can we get weird?
Yeah.
This
absolutely.
is movers and mavericks, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Or is it mavericks and movers? Which one takes
whichever
the
one? Both words in there.
You know, when you start exploring like anthropology and like the evolution of species, and you figure that the oldest known human civilization that we know about is just about 6,000 years ago with the Sumerians from like Mesopotamia. So we really don't have a great idea of what civilization was like past the 6,000 year mark. This is where things can get a little bit weird. They know that there were two monster cataclysmic events, one about 12,800 years ago, and another one I want to say about 11,600 years ago, where fragments from a comet smashed into Earth and pretty much wiped out the civilization as we know it. So me personally, I think that all of like the acupuncture, which is a very bizarre system, let's put needles in an invisible matrix of meridians to affect life force, or then we have this yogic system with chakras and meridians and movements. I think that was pretty much the dominant two of the ways that people move their body and lived in accordance with shapes and movements and flow. And then all of a sudden, everything changes. modern history says, you know, with the Sumerians, out of nowhere we go from hunters and gatherers to having like incredible temple builders and pyramid builders, with an incredible sophisticated universe of mathematics and science and like the wheel and the calendar. And so for me, I don't know if some of this is designed to just purposefully detach us from our true, animal, human expression. So basically what I'm saying is I think after going back 13,000 years ago, I think that we were living and moving and behaving in a way much different than we are, obviously, but in a more advanced manner. So now we've got all these kind of like crazy things, like let's do certain things, sit in chairs for long hours at a time, that has nothing to do with allowing us to express our full movement potential.
We were with a chap in London recently called Tony Riddle. He's known as a natural lifestylist, and his family does ground living. So they have no furniture in their flat at all.
No chairs.
No chairs.
They have low tables, but they sit on the
floor.
floor.
Sorry, good correction.
Right.
And he has 3 daughters, all under the age of 10. And the way that they move is incredible. And he was saying their youngest daughter, their middle daughter, stood and walked and climbed in a way that all of their peers couldn't quite believe. You know, this 1-year-old child that was climbing around these rocks in Ibiza. And when we were spending time with her or them, she would shimmy up a door frame and do finger pull-ups on the door frame at like 7 or 8 years of age.
Right.
And they live in London, so they're exposed to restaurants and modern day living. But those simple things of not having chairs and not having been in a chair from the age of one day, you can see how within several years, only 7 years maybe, they're moving and interacting completely differently than anyone else.
Right. I think it's like taking a lion out of Africa and the jungle or the savannah, and take that lion out of his or her natural environment and sticking that lion into an artificial environment. And over generations, that lion thinks that he or she's a house cat, and just forgot that he or she is a lion. So I think we forgot, we're humans with incredible gifts, physical gifts, mental, emotional gifts, energetic gifts. Yeah.
Do you think we're heading towards or approaching a big paradigm shift?
Yes, 100%. I mean, and from what I hear about when I go to different places, whether it's deep in Mexico or Peru, and you get to connect with like the people, like the guardians of the information, the guardians of the earth, like the true protectors of the earth. They're all of the mindset that this is the time now where we have like the new shift, and whether it's like the end of the Mayan calendar, the 25,926 year cycle, which is now supposed to bring about the dawn of a new age and a new era and a new way of thinking and a new enlightened human. I mean, like right now we have access to so much information from a movement standpoint, whether it's a martial art or a healing art. We have so much information right at our fingertips to explore. So I don't know if I can't say for certain that there are other forces out there that do not want us to have this information. I do. But I feel that this is like a really exciting period to be alive, because a lot of this stuff wasn't available going back 10 years, 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah. Or maybe it wasn't connecting, because martial arts was still there,
Yes.
yoga was still there. They were
You
separate tribes,
Connecting.
but it seems to be something's happening to
Connecting and elevating.
Yeah.
There seems to be an explosion, I think was probably a good word to use, in the past 5 to 10 years of these. Look at yoga.
Right.
10 years ago, it was, relatively speaking, quite niche, but in the past 5 years,
Yeah, I mean, 25 years ago to have done that.
Mm-hmm.
And Petri Reisinen, who we featured in issue 2, his teacher was a guy called Derek Ireland. So he must have been practicing Ashtanga early 80s.
So he was one of the OGs.
He kind of was one of the OGs that brought it over.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was a pro soccer player, injured. Incredible stories of him healing, like from severe burns. It must have been a radically different world, like a very odd missionary coming over.
And exciting too.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Yeah, it's wild. It feels like there are all these things, like we were talking about Buckminster Fuller, you know, the geodesic dome, all of the dots,
For sure.
and some kind of lights just shone on, and it's just like all the straits are like connecting all this thing. Maybe it's not complete.
Yeah, founder of Tensegrity, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Which is like part of the backbone of chiropractic structural theory and practice.
Amazing. We've just come from being with a vocal coach who's fascinating, Arthur Joseph, which will be another podcast. Buckminster Fuller didn't speak for a whole year until he could understand the language sufficiently to be able to communicate his thoughts, which I think is one of the most incredible things, to be able to then articulate the geodesic dome and all his ideas, you know. So his wife had to talk for him for a whole year. She must have been so pissed.
For sure.
So how do you connect these dots? There's obviously people that come into your practice with an understanding of the type of work that you do or how you do your work. But there's obviously people who don't, who arguably...
They trip out initially.
Who arguably are, you know, the greater patients, maybe greater is the wrong word to use, who arguably are the more interesting patients to treat because there is a steeper curve to what they're going to go through. How do you connect these dots for those people, and how do they react to it, and how do they move forward with it? How do you express to someone that doesn't have any understanding? They think they're just coming in to get a little bit of a click and move some things around, and they kind of go out completely different.
Yeah.
and not structurally.
Yeah, for sure. I think as far as like my approach, the way that I communicate has a lot to do with the yogic lineage that I've learned over the years, with a step-by-step approach. And as soon as you start talking about energy and vibration, I mean, you've lost those people straight away. So, you know, I keep it nice and simple. And even for the people who are so far out into, you know, they're like, you want to start talking about the flower of life or the Shriyant, like they can go as deep and metaphysical as you can go. I just start off with the basic bare bones because that's the best starting point. When we're talking about the physical body, when you get it down into its most like the smallest particle, it's just energy. And as that energy starts condensing, then we start getting more matter, and now we're dealing with the physical body. So if we just play in the physical realm first before we get crazy and abstract, we talk physical. We talk about how there can be a bone out of place, bone loses its normal motion, can put pressure upon the nervous system, create tension within the system. If your body can adapt to the tension, then you're good to go, like carry on. But if your body can't adapt to that tension, now we've got the bracing, the splinting, the guarding, and that's usually why a person's here. When I start communicating like that, we're good. So you're bracing, you're splinting, and you're guarding right here. You're bracing, you're splinting, and you're guarding right here. You're bracing, you're splinting, you're guarding right here. We just call that a subluxation. So then I can go, you've got a subluxation right here. You have a subluxation right here, subluxation right here. And when we get this bone to move and it takes the pressure off the nerve and it restores, kind of like what we're talking about with this tensegrity, everything is interconnected type of approach, then it brings your body into a state of ease. And when we bring your body into a state of ease, globally and localized, you're going to experience better movement, better flow, and better ease, period. You know, and like the reason why you're experiencing this problem here is because it's all blocked up. My job is to find out where it's blocked and unblock it. I can talk, you know, as like a kindergartner. You got a hard white bone putting pressure on a little yellow nerve that's messing up the electricity going to the tissue cell, muscle, organ, blood vessel, gland. And by removing or aligning this bone, we take the pressure off the nerve. Now, by the way that the whole body works, now we're dealing, then we can get it a little bit more advanced. And now we're talking about homeostasis, where, look, your body is going to keep you in a set position, in a set state of being for a long, you know, based on whatever environment that you're cooking the body in. Cook your body in, you know, an altitude of 7,000 feet. Your body's going to adapt to it, and then your body's going to have, like, you're living at 7,000 feet physiology, and that's the deal. So if your body, to shift you from this distorted state into more of an aligned state, that takes time. And then the time factors has to do with how old you are, how many traumas you've experienced, what's your occupation, what's your movement profile look like, you know, what's your sleep, what's your nutrition look like? Are you an angry person? You know, what are the physical, chemical, mental, emotional traumas that you've experienced in your entire life? And then it's like, wait a minute, I was just here to get a good crack. And you're like, well, now we've adjusted the conversation. And in fact, I don't even really tell people I treat anything. You know, treatment would imply like just the eradication of sickness or symptoms or disease. And granted, I don't want sickness or symptoms or disease, but the sickness, the symptom, and the disease is not necessarily like the ultimate causative entity. It's your body out of balance with the environment, which is enabled or allowed the whatever stimulus, the force, the load, the input or signal to overpower your body's natural ability. And it could be a little bug. You know, if your body's internal environment is nice and strong and the terrain on the inside is nice and strong, you know, bug has no chance. Changing of the seasons. If you go outside with a wet head, wet hair, and it's a little bit cold outside, and then you've got that cold chill going into your body, does your body have enough internal strength to deal with that environmental hit? You go try to do a deadlift. If your body, if you don't have the internal constitution due to, let's say, playing rugby or a couple traumas or accidents, and you go for that lift, and your biomechanics aren't dialed in, then you may actually experience a situation. Same thing goes with yoga. You know, you've experienced 15 car accidents, and you've got like problems with your desk, and then you go into, or problems with your neck, and then you go to do a 3-minute long headstand, which is still a good long headstand, but let's say you like a good 7-minute long headstand. But a 30-second headstand, and you apply too much stress, and the neck can't handle that stress, and then it buckles. So now we're having like a new conversation of recognizing that when you place your body in a certain environment, that it's going to adapt to whatever environment it is. Good environment, bad environment, body's going to adapt. But can you handle, can your body adapt to those environmental forces, loads, input, signals, and shapes on a physical, chemical, mental, emotional level? And if the answer is no, tension develops. Can you sort that tension out through your own practice, your own movement, or with help? No. Then now we're in trouble. So now we're into this new conversation. We just went to homeostasis, where why would somebody think that they just can get a good crack and then hit the road? It's because it's going to take time for your body to adapt to the new environmental conditions that you're under. And then now we're having a new conversation about epigenetics, where, look, it's not just the gene. You're not like, here are your genes, not like jeans, pants, but your genes from mom and from pop, you're not just a victim of your genes. It's how your genes interacts with the environment, which will allow for the full expression of you. You put yourself in incredible situations, you're going to see some incredible changes, because your body always is going to adapt. It has no choice. It's part of the innate programming of the cells. Adaptation, survival. Unless you have some rare genetic defect, your body is always going towards like survival, self-preservation. So for me, I like having conversation about the spine. I like talking about the nervous system. I like talking about tensegrity. I like talking about homeostasis. I like talking about epigenetics. And then I like talking about lifestyle. And you're either allowing your body to get stronger, or you're killing yourself slowly or rapidly on a physical, chemical, mental, emotional level. So when we kind of like educate people about that without shoving it down their head, I can start off very easy, bone out of place, putting pressure on the nerves. We shoot some x-rays, we can get a nice profile of how long a person's been in a state of degeneration. So you can kind of get some predictable timelines, how long it's going to take, for a person to improve from a structural level and even on a cellular tissue healing level. But then after that, it comes down to like, what is the person's internal fortitude, their mindset, like if they're, weak mind, if they have a weak mindset, if they just don't have like, there's no fight in them. Well, they gotta want it. And most of the people that come in here after the first and second visit, they want it or they don't want it. And we make sure that we're clear of what it is that we do and what we don't do, so we don't waste their time and don't waste my time, because I'm working my ass off. I train on the outside to take care of, the people that come in here. And this isn't just a job. This is like an obsession for me. So we're big into teaching people how to elevate their health, maintain their health. And if you're not in this mindset and you're coming in here busted and broken, well then, hey, part one is let's get you to this level. And if you want to take it to the next level, we can.
I would assume that when people come in here, that even if they're down here, just that first step is almost like the initial phase of reflection. To even recognize there's something, because there must be many people. We were talking about, obesity, weren't we, the other day? Like, you can see there's something, but they've got to feel there's something wrong, as opposed to, this is just me.
You're banking on the person being awake and aware, and a lot of, we need to unplug as many people. But I think from the conversation that I have with people, you come in and you have something wrong. It's not hey, where's your problem? And what motion irritates it? And how long have you had it? And what traumas have you had? That's like the ABCs. That's like required. And then I want to go deeper. And I want to have like a deeper conversation with what's up. And some people are open and will share the what's up and get into more of the deeper stressors that are impacting their life, where maybe they may not want to say it, but they'll kind of just give a little taste and a little hint. Because people are, most people come to me not because they're like, I want to have my nerve pressure removed so I can express 100% innate potential. They're like, come in, I got neck pain, or I got low back pain. When somebody comes in for the I'm here for optimal wellness, I'm like, awesome. But it's about 1 out of 10. Usually people are coming in because they're banged up. And sometimes it's not just they're sitting at a desk for 8 hours a day. It's something deeper, maybe like abandonment, betrayal, rejection, humiliation, or sorrow or grief, and that's like manifesting in their body.
And that was my other thought, hearing you talk about trauma. Trauma's not just a broken nose or a dislocation.
Yeah.
The layers of trauma are really how I would describe it now is anything that knocks your body off course in a way, and some things you hold on, like, you know, I was hit over the head about 12 years old, and I climb, or I used to, and I'd always have a problem moving like that. And I went to see an osteo, and he was like, you were hit about here, and he could see this thing, and I don't, you know, you just shake it off and you think you're fine, but it goes in, it's this programming.
Yeah.
And I've forgotten where I was going with it. I was lost in this world. But this idea of trauma, injury is probably not the correct word. You use trauma, and you've used it all the time. You said it, you had trauma to the nose playing rugby. Trauma is anything that's negative to the physical body, right?
Trauma, toxins, negative thoughts. Those are like the big threes that we work with in like chiropractic philosophy and approach. So I like to drop things into different, like a filter. Yeah. So when somebody comes to me and it's like, I have no idea why something is wrong with me. Like I didn't have a car accident, it just came out of nowhere. So now we throw out the physical questionnaire, and then we say, like, what's up? Did you have any other traumas? Like, were there any significant impacts into your being 7 years ago? You know, and normally people will say, if they're open to it, we try to create like a safe environment that they'll go deep and they'll share.
Where does kinesiology and muscle testing fit in with?
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of different techniques and approaches within chiropractic. Like chiropractic has, it's like the Roman numeral number 1, and there's the A through Z's as far as like the different techniques. I mean, actually there's even more. I mean, 100+ techniques. Applied kinesiology is, you know, it gets thrown in the chiropractic toolbox because chiropractors will use it, but it's not necessarily like chiropractic. Like we can just throw the names out there, and it's just a way of communicating with the body. I don't personally use it. I respect it, but it's a way of communicating and talking to the body in a language that goes outside of what mainstream health sciences will accept. You know, so like you have some, you know, the classical muscle test. Don't let me push your arm down. And then it's like, hold this in your hand, and it's a apple, and a nice red apple, and resist my pressure, and like hold it nice and strong. And then they put in like a rotten apple, and then the body tests weak. Or they can touch different muscles on the body to test if that muscle is strong, or if the muscle is weak, or if it's disconnected. And man, like that stuff is, I know some people poo-poo it more than like the people who just want the scientific, the evidence-based approach, like show me the science. You know, I don't necessarily use it to tell if, I don't use it. I just don't use it. Yeah. But, you know, if somebody were to kind of like test it to test the integrity of your kidney, some people are like, man, you are friggin' crazy to do that. But sometimes with the right practitioner, people like who are elevated, who can actually, you know, they just have a stronger sense of connection. They can pick it up.
Yeah. Interesting. I had an experience of that. A friend of mine who was a real skeptic of anything, he was just like willpower the whole way, just driving. And we persuaded him to go and see an osteo, but kinesiologist really and he was so accurate.
Maybe I was thinking of applied kinesiology where they do the muscle testing.
Well,
Is that what you're talking
this
about?
was it.
Okay,
And
cool.
he did whatever he did and said, you've been swimming in open water, or you've been swimming in water that's contaminated by bacteria, and you've got this gut. And he was like, yeah, whatever. And he went away, and he was like, when I was 16, we used to break into this reservoir and go swimming, and I was fine before that.
Wild.
And he was, and this guy was so on another kind of level,
Yeah.
which you kind of have to navigate them anyway. And he was just kind of like, you've got this, blah, 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 just drink some full fat Coke and it'll go away. And it did. And this guy was, I mean, it was so, you couldn't believe it, but he was so precise in what he said, whether it was a placebo or whatever. It was just phenomenal.
You know, I think that comes down to even
Wizardry.
like what's that?
It was like wizardry.
Wizardry, yeah. And, well, we call it wizardry. Like if you gave a guitar to Tom Morello, Rage Against the Machine, Audio Slave, Prophets of Rage. And you Rage, yeah. And you say, hey, Tommy, can you tune this guitar? And he tunes it like it's nothing, and then just kind of like rips it, you know, just goes to town. You're like, wizardry. Like, this is insane. This is not, a human should not be able to do that. But there's a lot of things that when we are trained to do certain things that the body can pick up and it can read stuff, and we're so incredibly intuitive, but we don't tap into our intuitive sides. We don't trust our gut. We cover up our symptoms. We move like garbage. We forgot that we're animals. We forgot that we have like incredible abilities to tap in to the inside. So I think that as part of like our conversation, where we are at and the time that we're alive, this is a time where we have increased intuition, increased sensitivity, increased ability to tap in, because we're able to connect the dots to a lot of different things. So wizardry, maybe in another 100 years, like this applied kinesiology is going to be like the standard approach for assessing things without having to do CAT scans and MRIs or, you know, exploratory surgery. I won't have to take x-rays anymore, but
it's like the original internet or the World Wide Web. Like, it doesn't make any sense how it works.
Yeah.
But
well, then they talk about the web of life, you know, like the real World Wide Web, where like the collective web. And I think that we're trying to connect to this collective web. The yogis talk about it. If you do yoga, like old school yoga, meditation, tapping into this collective pool. So we're the ones that are trying to push the envelope forward to keep the connection to this web, the World Wide Web, going.
How do you guide someone through seeing, well, how do you choose who to go and see? Chiropractor, physio, but there's such an array of things. Do I do acupuncture? Do I go Ayurveda? Do I do
question.
this?
Let's just say you have all of the time and the resources available to you. I feel if you are of the vertebrate species, you're not a jellyfish, like you have a spine and a nervous system, you should go to a chiropractor, period. Because you know, you're alive, because like life force is only available in live humans versus dead humans. You should go to an acupuncturist. Should you go to a traditional Chinese medical practitioner to make sure that, you know, you have appropriate herbs, like how I said herbs. I like herbs better than herbs.
I've always wondered why Americans call it herbs.
Same, except, you know, in the last 10 years, I've wondered why. But yeah, herbs, or going to like an Ayurvedic practitioner where we look at, you know, the person's body constitution. You know, I'm looking at you both, and if I were to kind of like line you up from just like the physical characteristics, you know, You're definitely a fire type with a little bit of wind. I'm a fire type. You're an earth type also with a little bit of water. So, you know, like going to different type of people that will respect you, honor you, approach you, care for you based on your body constitution versus just like male, age, you know, whatever, or female. Like there's a little bit more of a sophistication with the assessment. Now medicine is coming around to it. You got the integrative medical doctor. So for me, who do you go to? Chiropractor, straight up. But people are scared shitless of chiropractors. You know, some reasons are valid. It's an art form. To tune and adjust the spine takes a lot of practice, you know, and I like to play at the professional level. I want to be like the Tommy Morello of tuning a spine. And people have gone to chiropractors, and unfortunately, they're not Tommy Morello. They go to, you know, a high school garage band guitar player, and they get irritated, and then they're like, chiropractic is whack. Well, they didn't see a professional level.
Yeah. So taking your time with going to, I guess, make the connection with the person. You kind of need to. You're letting someone into a really personal space.
Yeah.
To manipulate or open, reconnect something within your body.
Yeah. That's
rather than going directory, chiropractor, nearest one. It's like, okay, kind of go and see them.
You nailed it. And right there.
If it doesn't feel right, go to the next one. There's a bit of homework required probably in everything in life.
At the end of the day too, you have to trust your intuition, and it's about feel. Whenever I've had blood drawn, you know, somebody's about to pierce my system, can I give you a hug real quick? Can you just like, zzz? Some people even like doing that before they get their hair cut. You know, they're cutting into their nervous system. But yeah, it does come down to trust and rapport for anything. Choose your teachers wisely.
Yeah. The connection again, right? The bigger
connection. I'm seeing like some nice big takeaways, little gems from this conversation.
Yeah,
already.
Connection seems to be
universal
and coming up a lot for us.
And reflection.
Reflection.
We've heard that
since we landed.
We've heard it 3 times with 3 other people that we've podcasted with.
In different guises, you know, whether it's how we speak and pausing in between just so we can connect and think about what we said before we just go into the other words. Yeah. Or the Ron with the climbing.
Reflecting after a practice, taking the time to ask what you've learned.
Integrating. Yeah, and that's what the space that we're in right now after they've, you know, had like their world reconnected.
Yeah, because I imagine if you just come in here wanting a treatment and then walk back out the door, you're coming back in a couple of weeks later because, you know, you haven't taken what you've learned, what you've experienced, and integrated it back into your life. You know, whether that be you're changing some things you know, with your diet or et cetera, through the list that we talked through earlier on. It's
right.
You need to be reflective of what's going on, especially with your body. I mean, kind of is almost ludicrous that you wouldn't be reflective with your body. I mean, I know 100%. I know I'm preaching to the converted, but
yeah, it's like when we were looking at the one poster, Shavasana, and people blow past the Shavasana. It's a waste.
That's the integration, isn't it?
But it's arguably the most important pose. Stand in place, Tadasana, with, you know, grounded, rooted feet, elongated spine, expanded field, grounded sensing, connecting to the environment, and then being able to integrate it and put it back together, which is also part of the one of the most important and mispracticed or underpracticed elements is the self-reflection, integration, grounding, self-reflection, contemplation.
Yeah, the transitions before growth, aren't they? That we like to miss the transition. Like it's all about movement. It's never about rest and recovery. So I'll do a double session, Olympic lifting twice, and it's like you could probably do with the space in between to rest and recover, but we just don't like to talk about these transitions. And even we obviously know Carl Powley, and you know Carl as well, right?
I do.
Yeah, and we were talking about something, but it's all in the transitions, isn't it? A handstand's not a handstand. You start standing up, and it's that transition to get to the last pose, but then also how you come out of it.
Handstanding.
Yeah.
It's about the ing. Yeah.
And this idea of transitions, like, to me, it was in a meditation. I can remember journaling afterwards, and it's like everything's about the transition. The movement's irrelevant, but it's shavasana. It's the mobility work after, it's that we kind of gloss over, because it's, like it's the click. You just come in and you want a click. Well, the clicks kind of lie down first. Otherwise, you'll come back in for another click and always miss the point.
Well, in fact, you said, that after the treatment, people come out here and they move. And they get to feel what it's like in their body. They don't just straight out the door, pay and straight out the door, which is what you get.
Into the car.
Yeah. I would have a different setup and a different design. Yeah, it would just be all tables, one after another. We would have another 15 tables in here. It would just be all tables, like an adjustatorium. There's nothing wrong with that. The style and the method and approach that I put into play here, different than other spaces and different chiropractic offices, which is, again, like almost, it says chiropractic on the on the sign out front, but it's a disguise. It's a human performance enhancement center. It's a school for learning and movement and growth and health and healing and wholeness and vibrancy. And I just use
which comes across in the logo that you have on the front of the building. As it's chiropractic, but that gets the people that don't know. Yeah. But then you're like, okay, there's, it speaks more than one language. It's the Trojan horse, right?
I like USC Trojans, so it's a tough season this year if you're a football fan, but yeah.
Yeah, that's. I think you just make a connection with things, don't you? And
that's just how I go. Like, I have like a very sensitive nervous system. It's just, I guess this is just my ultimate expression of me as a just breaking down like the labels from, forget chiropractor or doctor of chiropractic or a yogi. I'm just a student of life, of health and well-being. And I utilize disciplines that excite me and make me feel alive. And in the past 19 years of being in practice, doing all of this kind of chiropractic plus yoga, if we're naming it, and seeing like lives transformed, it's like it's the greatest thing ever. So it's no longer like a job. I don't feel like I go to where I don't never dread going to work.
Well, I thought it was funny when you called this an office. It's like the furthest from an office that.
Yeah, center.
Yeah.
Center, space.
But that's the word we have, like chiropractic. We have
those words are important, I guess, kind of like what Buckminster Fuller, where he, for 1 year. So I try to choose my words, even like the lingo and the language that we use in chiropractic. There's words that we like to use and don't like to use because of what those words represent, especially during a person's healing or transformational process.
Yeah. Yeah. Words are. That's coming out for us a lot on the trip. the power of words and taking your time and articulating, because without words there's nothing.
Arthur said to us earlier on, words are finite and infinite.
Mm.
I mean, it's, you know, I'm not even going to say it's true because it is.
So, how do people find you? Because obviously you're in LA.
Just book a flight.
Yeah.
Ours were about 400 quid return on Norwegian. So it's pretty
Wow.
straightforward.
I hear it's a great airline.
It was.
Really good.
It is.
Yeah. Good air. Like they have extra air.
Extra oxygen
yeah.
in there, recycled air.
You stand
It's
off.
good.
You get off the plane, you're fine.
Mm.
You don't have that
That's
feeling.
important. I actually use a website called Seat Guru,
It tells you where to.
you know, like which seat on the plane is good. Don't sit at, you know, row 11, you know, in the second seat because,
Seat
there's a
doesn't work.
defect in this model airplane. But yeah, I should probably look at Air.
Norwegian
Air,
Air.
really,
Norwegian
really
Air.
super good. Yeah.
That's
But
great.
your Spine Checker on Instagram.
Spine Checker on Instagram. Absolutely love using that that platform in terms of sharing like my creativity and my thoughts. Spinechecker.com. I have an online movement program called the Wise Progressions. It's a dynamic full spine movement sequence. You can get that at spinechecker.com. But yeah, spinechecker.com, Spine Checker. Just search
Amazing.
Spine Checker and you'll run into me.
We shall.
And is this Santa Monica or Venice?
This is West LA. We're like 1 block away from Santa Monica. And Venice is going to be a little bit further south and west. Not much. So we're right in that little corner.
So if you're in LA, that's where to come.
Yeah.
West side. So come to the west side, the Life Center Chiropractic.
Wonderful.
Amazing.
Jeremy, thanks so
Yeah,
much, man.
thank
It's been
you.
a real pleasure speaking to you.
Big time. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.